Good morning everyone, welcome back to another video. Don't forget to hydrate, it's one of those days, so let's get it done. We're back with the quite aptly named educational quick tips. The last time I did this video, which was regarding my warm-up, it was actually over a month ago, and you seemed to like it, so going back to a few of the questions you sent me, I'm going to get to one right now. So I actually had the same kind of question, but from different angles. So one question was about, interested to hear your thoughts on different periodization training models, specifically undulating versus block periodization. And then from another angle, I had it whereby people were asking, like, is it better to build to an event, or is it better to kind of just build to a certain level of fitness and then try and maintain it? So I've made a couple of notes, and it's something that I always talk about whenever somebody comes to me and they want to start a training program, because it's basically the fundamentals of it. You know, how are you going to structure the training plan? The truth is, I'll summarize it at the end, but all of these work. It just depends which one works for you, and which one works best and fits in with your work routine. Because I know that most of you, if not all of you, and the way things are going with me now, I'm actually having to structure my day a lot more around work and around my cycling. I can't do what I did, 6 years ago, where I just woke up and my job was to ride my bike, and I just rode my bike for like 4 or 5 hours, came home, did nothing, and then got ready for the next day. Okay, so the way I see it is that there's like 3 common training philosophies. So there's compete to fitness, there's always fit, and then there's periodizing. And these are taken from the Cyclist Training Bible, which is it's a training Bible written by Joe Friel, what we'd call the godfather of training principles at the very turn of the century, I guess. So you can probably imagine which one I prefer. I prefer periodizing, but the always fit and the compete to fitness, they both kind of, the problem with compete to fitness is, you end up kind of almost guessing to a certain point where you want to be at that level, and is that level going to be good enough? The thing with always fit is that you tend to be training kind of the same volume, the same amount of intensity, the same interval sessions. There's no real, peaks and troughs throughout the year, which there would be naturally anyway, but you're always trying to stay at a certain level the whole year. And truth be told, that fitness is never like constant. Your FTP today is going to be different to what it was yesterday, and it's going to be different again. And then the periodizing, at least for the most part, training goes from general to specific throughout the year as you move through certain phases. For me, right now, if we use me as a real world example, still training for the National Hill Climb Championships, which is 2 weeks away. Most of my training, I'm at a high level of training for the most part of the year, so that's 6.6 to 7 watts per kilo for 20 minutes. But then the difference is when a specific event is coming up, that's when I really dial in and control all variables, and do specific sessions that are targeted towards that. And that can only be, once you're at that level, that can only be maybe 4 to 6 weeks out from the event, because you don't want to be doing them like 13 weeks away from the event. And of course, total training load during periodizing is manipulated in different ways by adjusting volume and intensity. So there's a couple of periodizing models. You might have heard of all of them, you might have only heard of 1 or 2, so I'll quickly run through them. There's linear periodizing, which is also known as like the classic way of doing things, whereby you have a base, build and race, and ideally you start with a big volume block, and then you taper off to do a lot of intensity as you get closer to the race, and in doing so your fitness goes up and up and up. I'd say the only downside with that one though is that in order to do that correctly, like the base, you need to have a lot of hours, and you need to dedicate a lot of hours to it in order to reap the benefits of it the more traditional way. Then there's reversed linear, which is basically, yeah, the reverse of the classic model, which is one that I followed for the last kind of 3 years. But now, well, I'll get onto it in a second, but it's changed now. But basically now it's go intensity in the winter, and then into kind of volume in the summer or in the race season. And the way this works, again, a practical example, especially if you're racing in the UK, okay? So the majority of you are racing in the UK. If you want to race in the UK, or even if you just want to do like sportives or Grand Fondos in the UK, and they all happen to be in the summer, generally speaking, your best bet is to do all your intensity in the winter. Why? Because you can do it indoors. You have less daylight hours, and it's colder, so it's a little bit more dangerous with ice and things like that. The thing is, when you get then to March and it starts to, you know, those things start to reverse, you can then start to add volume into the intensity that you've already built. So in theory, you could have peaked intensity wise in March, which is not a bad thing, because then you're adding a different stimulus, which is the volume, and then you can kind of recycle the other things back in. The way it works with races, actually, so the way I used it was, because I was racing at such a high intensity almost every weekend during the season from March to September, by doing these, you know, base rides during the season, the intensity of them was really, really low, but the racing on the weekends really, really high. So the racing was almost like, that was almost like just topping up what I'd done all the way through the winter, and I was basically holding the same level. So this goes on to undulating now, which I'll explain. Undulating periodization is where you kind of go through different cycles of intensity, and volume, intensity, volume, intensity, volume, intensity, and that obviously brings you to peak fitness. This actually closely resembles a lot of what people do if you literally just took a lot of samples from you guys and saw what you did over the space of a year. Generally speaking, this is what you do without even thinking of it. Block periodization as well, or block periodizing, is also where you single out those spaces. So you go, okay, well, this month we're going to focus on this, next month we're going to focus on this, or you can do 6-week blocks, you can do 12-week blocks. Really depends on, you know, where you're starting, and it depends as well what your end goal is. So for me, a 2-minute effort, I don't have to, like, when you're already at, say for example, you know, you're satisfied with your efforts already, you know, in order to go that one more, it's obviously not going to take such a long period of time. If you're going to train for the Olympics, for example, it's like, you know, it's a 4-year cycle, for example, but they still work in blocks to work on specifics. And then to wrap it up, like, there's no real, like I said, there's no real holy grail, there's no best model, just like there is no holy grail workout. Like, some workouts will be harder than others, granted, and they'll feel like, you know, they're giving you a right kick up the backside, but they're not necessarily the ones that make you stronger. It's the consistency and the vision over the long term, and the goal setting and keeping yourself in check is what's going to reap it in the long term. So it's basically like, it's the one that creates the best balance between, you know, training stress, your recovery, and then your everyday life, basically. So I hope you enjoyed this. We're going to hit you with some more educational tips very, very soon. Hit the thumbs up button, comment down below if you got anything else to say. I'll see you in the next one.